what happened is he claimed that he had chemicals injected into his eyes by his captors.
In 1994, 13-year-old Nicholas Barclay vanished without a trace from his hometown in San Antonio, Texas. As the years passed, hope for his safe return dwindled until in 1997, his family received a miraculous call from authorities in Spain. Nicholas was found and his family eagerly arranged for his return. It seemed almost too good to be true, and it was. When the boy arrived in Texas, something was off about him. He had a noticeable French accent and his eye color had changed from blue to brown. He claimed his captors had chemically altered his eye color and forced him to speak different languages to hide his true identity. But what led to his disappearance? When Nicholas first vanished from his home, no immediate alarm bells rang. He was a troubled boy with a history of criminal behavior and running away. Just before his disappearance, there were even plans to send him to a juvenile detention center. His parents figured that he had run away to avoid the consequences of his actions. But as days, weeks, and even months went by without a sign of life from Nicholas, it became clear that something was very wrong. The Barclays were struggling to believe that they'd ever see their son again.
You know you're not gonna find him alive, but you just want to find what happened to him.
3 years after the disappearance, across the ocean, a 16-year-old teenager showed up in a small Spanish village. He refused to speak or reveal his identity. The local authorities searched through missing persons registries until they found a match. The teenager was confirmed to be Nicholas Barclay.
And she says, "Are you sitting down? You're not going to believe this." And I said, "What, Mom?" She goes, "The police department just called me and they think they found Nicholas."
His overjoyed family rushed to return him to the States. When he arrived back in Texas, they met an anxious and guarded boy deeply affected by the trauma he had experienced. It took time, but Nicholas finally opened up about what had happened to him. On the day he went missing, he was kidnapped and taken to the airport. His captors took him to Europe, where he was pushed into a child trafficking ring. After living through years of horrors, he was able to escape and eventually made it home. His parents were so grateful to have him back that they were able to overlook how much he had changed.
You tell yourself, well, he's been through all this horrendous stuff, so he's absolutely going to be different.
For months, they lived together as a reunited family. But not everyone could settle for the new Nicholas. A private investigator named Charlie Parker had a feeling that something wasn't right. While watching footage of the family reunion, he couldn't ignore the glaring inconsistencies. First, Nicholas described going through an extremely scarring experience, but his behavior reflected maturity rather than trauma. Second, it's nearly impossible to change a human's eye color, and it seemed unlikely that the kidnappers would go to all the trouble. And third, how did an American boy without any identification or papers make it all the way to Spain? Investigator Parker compared photos of Nicholas from before and after his return, and he noticed a disturbing detail.
The ear is the only part of the human body that doesn't age. And I knew if I could compare the ears, I could know what I had here.
After Parker's findings, the court ordered Nicholas to submit DNA samples for the investigation. That was how the dark truth was uncovered.
I knew instantly I had an imposter.
The person living with the Barclays was identified as Frédéric Bourdin, a 23-year-old man from France, who was an identity theft mastermind wanted by international authorities. By that point in time, he had already assumed over 500 identities of missing children, moved in with their unsuspecting families, and lived off their kindness. His ability to transform his appearance earned him the name the Chameleon. When confronted with the evidence, Frédéric confessed to his deception. Under examination, he explained to police how he had pulled the ruse off. Frédéric was staying at a youth home in Spain where he was posing as a homeless child. When a welfare worker demanded to get his fingerprints, Frédéric knew that his criminal record would give his true identity away. So he started calling offices in America asking about missing children. When he heard about Nicholas Barclay, Frédéric saw an opportunity. He managed to get his hands on a photo of Nicholas and then set about transforming himself to look like the missing teenager.
So I dyed my hair, I put tattoos that I saw that he had.
Once the truth came out, people began to wonder, how did the Barclay family, Nicholas's own parents, not recognize that their son was an imposter? Frédéric was arrested and extradited to France, where he was sentenced to 6 years in jail. But before he was locked up, he himself cast suspicion on the family. He was certain that they knew he was an imposter all along. He believed they used his return as a cover for the fact that they had murdered their troublesome son. Even investigator Parker believes that Frédéric was onto something. When the FBI looked into the family, they uncovered some uncomfortable details. His older brother Jason was one of the first suspects in his disappearance. Jason passed away in 1998, so any connection he may have had to Nicholas's disappearance died with him. What about Nicholas himself? Some speculate that he may have been a runaway and that he's alive and well somewhere. Others believe that he may have met a tragic end. To this day, the case remains one of America's most perplexing unsolved mysteries. If you like this video and want to see more, hit that subscribe button.